So here is the fundamental question of our age. What ethics are we going to live by as we go forward? We know that ethics is society's destroyer, meaning that some of the countries with the greatest natural resources in the world have never come out of the third world. They're all developed, they're still just full of a few haves, mostly have-nots, people living on $2 a day. It isn't because of a lack of resources. It's no longer a lack of communication. It's no longer a lack of infrastructure. You can't blame anything on that. You can only blame, on examination, one thing: corruptness in the leadership ranks. Politicians and business leaders who are taking all the money off the table. So where's most of the money that's gone into Africa over the last 50 years to bring Africa into the modern world? It's gone into the Swiss bank accounts of African leaders. It's ethics that destroy society, and it's ethics that's at the heart of our issue that we're discussing today. It's ethics at the issue of leadership and the American dream. Now, we know that the younger generation doesn't trust anyone anymore because they don't deserve the trust. They have been betrayed by every promise that has been ever made by every institution. The safety nets are gone. There's no well-worn path. The children of today feel like they are on their own because they are on their own. The wall of shame in every area. Government has become a pawn of business and special interests. Religion is mired, big religion is mired in its own irrelevancy. And education, there's so much money spent on the bureaucratic side of education, there's too little money left to be spent actually teaching children. And we're teaching children the way teaching was invented 3,000 years ago. Years ago, we discovered something in education, that people learn best from a master teacher, whether they're on a video screen or whether they're live and in person. In other words, if you took the same groups of kids and you put the greatest history teacher that you could find for high school history, and they learned that class through distance learning, versus a live history teacher who might be a football coach pretending to be a history teacher, guess who learns better? They learn better on the video. What they find, if you really want to teach kids, get the very best teacher you possibly can. Represent it in front of that student in any way and provide them with tutorial help. That's called leveraging talent. But the education establishment, all they want is more money, not more ideas. So they bring in these things of standardized testing. So it makes the kids who are afraid of getting standardized tests and failing leave the system early. Let's increase the dropout rate. Who's doing the thinking around here? It's no wonder it's a wall of shame. The leadership crisis in our country can only be solved, can only be healed by ethical leadership. So here's how I want to challenge you to think about ethics. The ethics of today in our culture is based on the concept of law. You always hear the rule of law, the rule of law, the rule of law. So cool. Let me tell you, the rule of law is very limited. And it gained a lot of stature in the early part of this century. The rule of law is basically this. I'm going to do a cost-benefit analysis, and then I'm going to figure out what I am legally allowed to do, and then I'm going to stress, distort, and maybe influence the law to get every advantage I can. Now, I don't want to go over old news, but I just want to indicate that, gosh, there is a whole history, legal history, of cost-benefit ethics that pollute business history. Ford Motor Company and General Motors both created cars that were human bombs. Ford did it with the Pinto. GM did it a few years later with the Malibu. They put a gas tank behind the rear wheels without adequate bumper protection. So when these cars were hit by the rear, they became napalm bombs. And men, women, and children either died or were scarred for life, living in burn units for months at a time, because the average cost saving in the case of the Malibu was $8.40 per car. In other words, the mitigation for this design flaw would have been some greater bumper protection and moving the gas tank forward slightly. A cost in the General Motors case was about $8 increase. But in both the Ford case and in the General Motors case, the bean counters figured out how many people were likely to be killed or injured in these cars. And then what the average cost was of solving or making that problem go away, which they estimated about $200,000 a head. You divide that by the number of cars on the road, and it came out that they could probably buy off the litigants' claims for about $2 a car. So what kind of thinking is that? Is that the best we can do? Is this the society we want? That's the very best human beings can do. So, of course, juries made up of human beings like you and I give big awards. And what do courts do? Take away the awards. Well, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and all the friends of big business come in with legal briefs with all their ideas about why cost-benefit analysis in a capitalistic society totally makes sense. It's okay to burn up a few kids and moms that you could avoid, even with the knowledge of having to avoid. It's okay. After all, you got to protect those stockholders. Is that the best we can do? So what's the next level? The next level is called just. This is the level of ethics. Justice is based